Hi, my name is Nick Messmer. I'm the co-founder of Biblingo, and I'm a happy graduate of the master's program in Biblical Exegesis at Wheaton College.
Nick Messmer, good to see you. Thanks for being with us today on Exegetically Speaking.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here.
Now, you're a graduate of Wheaton College. That's very cool.
Yeah, that's right.
So, how did you get started reading Greek or Hebrew or
Um,
any of the things, right? Any
yeah,
biblical languages?
yeah, no, great question. I actually was new to reading the Bible in general, kind of going into college, and just was very enthusiastic about it because it was kind of a whole new world for me. And a friend of mine, who actually might come up later in the conversation, said, "Hey, if you enjoy studying the Bible, you should learn Greek and Hebrew," which is maybe a funny thing to recommend to a brand new reader of the Bible. But I took him up on it. And during my undergraduate degree, I just filled up all my electives with Greek and Hebrew courses. It was at a big state university, but they offered Greek in the classics department and Hebrew in the religion department. And I just ate it up and loved it right from the start.
Fantastic. Now, today you are involved in a business called Biblingo.
Mm-hmm.
So, give us the 30,000-foot view of that. What's going on in Biblingo?
Yeah. So, Biblingo, I co-founded it with that person I mentioned, Kevin Grosso, who originally recommended
That
learning Greek and
person.
Hebrew.
That
Yeah,
person.
so we started it together a few years back, and basically our mission is to make the biblical languages more accessible and easier to learn for everyone. And there's a lot we could dive into about how we're doing that, making it them more accessible and easier to learn. But the for everyone part is something that's really important to our mission. So, typically it can be difficult for people who aren't maybe in academia or pursuing pastoral ministry or something like that to learn these languages. And so our goal is really to broaden the scope of who has access to these languages. And so just from my interaction with our users, I know we have people as young as 5 years old, up
Ah,
to people in their 70s, at least just that I've spoken with. We have people from over 100 countries, and we have people from all walks of life,
that's incredible.
both scholars and lay learners alike. So we have Greek and Hebrew teachers using it, but we also have engineers and lawyers and electricians and moms and dads and all sorts of people using it.
Some people seem to have an aptitude, Nick, for languages. Other people feel like it's really tough. But in your experience, is there a special aptitude for language, or is it just a matter of what your will is driving you to do, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it depends a little bit on what you kind of think of when you think of learning a language. So I do think some people have an aptitude for learning like the nuances of a language and how it works. So more of like linguistics and grammatical analysis. I think certain people maybe that are more analytically minded or something like that do really well there, and others don't. But at the end of the day, when it comes to acquiring a language, meaning the ability to read, write, speak, listen,
Mm-hmm.
and use a language like that, everyone is pretty good at that. Most people have mastered at least one language in that way, right? Their native
Well,
language.
we all pretty much speak a language, right?
Right,
Even though
right.
our English may not be the best or our German may not be the best, we still
Mhm.
speak that language.
Yeah, and really a majority of the world has actually done that with at least a second language. Most people in the world are bilingual, and so humans in general do have the ability to learn languages if they're given the right resources and environment. And that's a big part of what we're trying to do with Biblingo is take methodologies that are used by people to learn usually modern languages, very quickly and effectively, and apply that to the biblical languages.
Well, when I hear the word biblingo, I think of Duolingo,
Hmm.
right? So,
Right.
did you guys model what you're doing after that in any sense?
In a broad sense, we did. Very broadly speaking, we're simply trying to take both the latest research in the field of second language acquisition, again, that's typically applied to modern languages, as well as the latest like technology and software and things like that, again, that's typically applied to modern languages, and we're trying to take both of those assets and apply them to the biblical languages. So in that sense, Biblingo is like Duolingo for Greek and Hebrew. But when you're using Biblingo, it won't feel, we do things differently. We're able to go a lot deeper with the languages than Duolingo does with theirs because they
Mm-hmm.
cover, however many languages. We only have to focus on two, at least for right now.
Right.
So it's like Duolingo in the fact that it's interactive and things like that, but it's also a bit different in a lot of ways.
So is this something I do on my phone or my computer? How do I do it?
I'm very happy you asked that. Up until recently, it's been a web-based program that is optimized for like a laptop or desktop, a larger screen.
Mm-hmm.
But just in the past few weeks, we released our native mobile app for iOS and Android. So we
Very
now have
nice.
an app that you download on your phone, and it's designed and optimized for your phone. And we have a lot of exciting new features we're going to be adding over the next few months as well.
You can't always carry a 17-inch screen with you everywhere you go,
Right.
right? But you can usually can carry your phone or maybe a iPad or something like that.
Yeah, so just in terms of that piece of our mission to make the languages accessible, that was a really big step in that direction that you can now put it in your pocket.
So, what is the thing that distinguishes Biblingo from what I did in a classroom? Right, I've been doing Greek and Hebrew for quite a number of years. Didn't learn it the way you guys are doing it. What would distinguish it from that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I've kind of alluded to is our methodology. And when you think about methodology, you kind of have to take a step back and first think about your objective. And I think this is something people don't tend to think as much about as they should. They just think, I want to learn Greek and Hebrew. But the question is, what does that really mean to learn it? Maybe you have specific goals, like I want it to help me in my ministry or prepare sermons or something like that. But again, the question is, how can you learn Greek and Hebrew in such a way that it allows you to meet those? And so for us, we think a really important objective for anyone is what we call reading fluency.
Mm.
And what that means is being able to sit down with a text, read it at a steady pace, maybe something like 150 to 200 words per minute, read a lengthy passage, right? With the Bible, maybe a chapter, 3, 5, 10 chapters at a time, and to understand the meaning of what you're reading. And so that might sound pretty basic, but I think most people who have tried to learn Greek and Hebrew would recognize that's typically not what you end up doing. Even people who have studied Greek and Hebrew for a really long time don't end up being able to read at that fast of a pace,
No,
that
you're right.
large of
Yeah,
a chunk of text.
and I've talked to pastors and others who would like to use the Greek or the Hebrew in sermon preparation,
Mm-hmm.
but if they have to work an hour on
Right.
one verse from Galatians
Mm-hmm.
or 20 minutes, 30 minutes, I mean that long, it makes it hard to do with the kinds of pressures that they're facing.
Right, right. And so traditional methods emphasize things more like grammatical and exegetical analysis, which are super important. I love it and I have a lot of fun with it. That's why I loved my time at Wheaton. We did a lot of that. But we think this skill of reading fluency is foundational to anything else you can do. It can help you in your grammatical and exegetical analysis because you're able to deal with more text at a time. You're able to kind of build intuitions and sensitivities about the language in a really helpful way. And so our methodology is completely aimed at that objective, reading fluency. And the good news is, like I've mentioned, there's a vast amount of research in the field of second language acquisition that's all about how do you become a fluent reader of any language. And
Mhm.
as long as you have the resources and environment that research promotes, you can do it with Greek and Hebrew. And so Biblingo is all about building that environment. And so some of the things that Biblingo does toward that end is we use things like images and videos instead of English like glosses and translations, so that when you read Greek and Hebrew, instead of kind of going through English to get to the meaning, you're able to associate Greek and Hebrew directly with what it refers to in the real world.
Mhm.
Things like that. We help you practice not only passive skills like reading, but also and listening, but also speaking and writing. And a lot of people think that's counterintuitive. My goal is to read. Why should I practice speaking and writing in Greek and Hebrew? But again, the research that I've referred to shows that practicing speaking a language makes you a better reader of that language. And so having the opportunity to practice speaking will actually improve your ability to read. So things like that you don't get in conventional resources we've tried to incorporate.
Have you seen anybody using Biblingo along with maybe more of a traditional classroom setting?
Yeah, absolutely. I know Dr. Seth Ehorn at Wheaton College is doing it right now. We have a number. I would say the majority of teachers who are using Biblingo are doing it in that way because it really, like I said, those other skills you get in traditional methods are really important, and the two really fit together quite well. And so that's how a lot of people are doing it.
If somebody wants to kind of connect with you and know more about, how would they do that?
Yeah, you can go to biblingo.org and learn all about it. You can sign up for a 10-day free trial there.
Cool.
And you can also use a discount code, exegetically speaking, all kind of one word, no dashes or anything like that, to get 20% off. And that's a great place to start.
Fantastic. Biblingo.com. That's great. Hey, listen,
Yeah.
thanks for being with us today, Nick Messmer.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me.
What a great conversation. I hope you agree. Now, there's only 168 hours until the next podcast drops, so watch for it. Subscribe to this podcast, rate us today. If you want to study biblical languages, you need to consider Wheaton College. They have the best program in the country, bar none. Go to wheaton.edu, look for modern and classical languages. Get started today. Come on, you know you want to. Thanks for those who make this podcast possible. John Lansma is our Wheaton-based director, Ian Rosine, and Rebecca Larson. Thanks to Phil Keggy for our music. Until next time, thanks for listening.